was supposed to be a boy. So I was supposed to take over my dad's business. And he said, like, well, there's no more boys, so I guess you're going to take over. So I grew up like a male. My dad raised me as a male, not as a female. I was raised with high standards because my dad actually, he came from a very poor background. He started working since he was 8 years old. I mean, his work ethics is like obviously very high. Then when I was 13, I was helping my sister because my sister was doing the accounting for my dad's business. And then, I was working on the books, but I didn't like the office, so I started going to the field with my dad. 13 years old, going to construction sites, surrounded by like 50 guys, So it's intimidating, but you get used to it. I mean, I think it was great because I have like two sides, Like I'm not very emotional, I'm not very sensitive, I calculate everything, I'm not impulsive. I was not allowed to cry, so my mentality is I'm very masculine, but I'm very feminine. It was just flowing, it was never forced, like, oh, you have to work,
Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within. Karla Lu, welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Thank you, Clayton.
I am grateful to have you here because we've had a couple conversations in the past, and I do feel that you have such a unique experience in life and what you've went through and what you've accomplished and where you're headed. So it's an honor to have you here today and to discuss important matters that I like to have conversations that a lot of people think, but maybe most people don't feel know how to navigate through certain conversations. And so today, while I don't have any gotcha moments or anything like that prepped for you, I do want to talk about something that personally, even me, like I am not too familiar with. And so I know it's a cliffhanger, so I won't keep you on that for too long. But first, on the cover, you are a successful individual in life in general. I'll first start by saying with your social media, you've accrued quite an audience. You have over 425,000 followers on Instagram alone, and that was on one account. I think I saw you had a separate account as well. So well over 500,000 on social media. But you are more than just an influencer. You also were a former civil engineer.
Yes.
Yeah, which again is that's a hard profession to be in, and it takes a lot of schooling. My dad was an engineer, and I believe that's why you have the term on your social media, Polymath Mom, the Polymath Mom,
yes.
Which I wasn't aware of what Polymath was, and so I looked it up, and it's a person with expertise or knowledge in multiple fields.
Yes.
So you pride yourself in that.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that's incredible. And I want to start there for today because to be someone who has experience in being like with polymath, as far as being able to be an expert in multiple fields, was a discussion that was brought up to me, actually it was just last week. And somebody said, I find it really interesting. And by the way, this was a woman that I was talking to with kids. They said, I find it really interesting that if a woman is really successful, she's a CEO of a company, could be like an avid runner that has won, multiple accolades or whatever it might be, has a ton of development professionally. Even with all of that, she's still often referred to as a mother first. If you contrast that with like a male CEO, yeah, maybe a father, but it's like, hey, they got their degree from here. They've done this, and this in the past, and they're also a father of 2 or 3. And so it almost is placed in as like an addition, but it's not a man's full identity. And so this woman I was talking to said for a lot of times for women, it's like being a mother is their full identity, regardless of what they've accomplished. And so my first question to you is, have you felt that in your life? I mean, you're a civil engineer, like you have that whole background, but do you sometimes feel that the public or those around you overlook that and place the role of the mother as like your identity?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a male career. My dad was a builder, contractor, and I was like, my whole life I grew up with men. So my mentality is I'm very masculine, but I'm very feminine. My whole like first like maybe 10 years was focusing on being a professional and a career. It's a male career. It's tough,
Yeah.
when you're a female. But yeah, once I turned into motherhood, it completely shifted my mentality. So I was more focused on my family, focused on my kids, and then the career kind of just took a second,
Okay.
second plan.
So it's interesting. So talk about your upbringing. So were you were only child, or did you have siblings?
No, I had siblings. We were 3 girls. Yeah.
3 girls.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you had no brothers.
I had one, but
One
he
brother.
passed. I never met him.
Okay.
I'm the youngest,
Okay.
and I was supposed to be a boy.
Oh, okay.
So I was
Okay.
supposed to take over my dad's business, and he said, like, well, there's no more boys, so I guess you're going to take over. So I grew up like a male. My dad raised me as a male, not as a female. So.
He did. Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that? I mean, talk about some of the ways that he raised you as a male. What does that look like in your perspective?
I mean, I think it was great because I have like 2 sides, Like
Okay.
I'm not very emotional. I'm not very sensitive.
Okay.
I calculate everything. I'm not impulsive. I was
Okay.
not allowed to cry. Like it was like I grew up with men. Like I was like 13 years old going to construction sites surrounded by like 50 guys,
Yeah.
So it's intimidating, but you get used to it. So
Yeah. And that's interesting. So you took the role, which is something I can relate to. As a man growing up, we were told almost by society. It wasn't always said to us directly. It was by my peers that if you cry, you're soft and you're,
yes.
you're,
Weak.
like, you're weak-minded or whatever it might be.
Yes.
Society also showed on movies and such, like there was only like there was the big muscular guy that was, is Rambo, or he's in war. He's the star football player. But there was never really any depiction of a man that was showing emotion.
Yes.
And so I can relate to what you're talking about, where it's like, you were raised in that sense where it's like, hey, there's no time for tears. And so do you feel that you are more emotional now, or you give yourself that permission to be emotional, or do you still feel today that like tears are only to be had behind closed doors? Do you still kind of hide those emotions?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is like that. I mean, I'm obviously emotional with my kids.
Yeah.
Like I'm very emotional with my kids. I'm very like soft.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, in anything else, I treat everything else like a business.
Okay.
And even with my kids, I'm very tough. Like I know, my girl is a girl, the boy is a boy.
Yeah.
But I'm tough with the girl too, because I mean, it's a cruel world.
Yeah,
and there's so much stuff going on. I don't want her to like be on social media. Like, like the other day I was talking to people and she was asking me like, do you think I'm fat? And I'm like, no, you're an 8-year-old. You're beautiful. No, you're not fat. And it's that social media, that environment that she's looking at. And now she's comparing herself with other people.
Okay. So I was going to ask, so this wasn't somebody that said that she was fat. She just started to form that belief or question, have that question formed based on what she was seeing online. Did she say that she was looking at other like girls her age?
No.
Or was she looking at models? Like
I think she was looking at like people that were older, maybe like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I find that really fascinating because, she's comparing herself to people that could be models, like their job is to be on the skinnier side. And so she, as an 8-year-old, is already having those thoughts.
Yes.
When you had that discussion with her and you said, hey, listen, I know you're not fat at all. Like, how do you think she took it? I mean, like, is it easy to be able to convince her out of it? Like she just saw this online and had this thought. Do you feel that it stuck with her that after you made that comment that she's like, okay, and moved on? Or do you fear that, she'll go back online and continue to hold that narrative that maybe she should look a certain way?
I think she will continue, but I always give her reassurance. And I tell her too, like, I'm 43 and, like there's people that make nasty comments, good comments, like, but at the end of the day, it's like, like at this point in my life, I don't really care what people think about me.
Yeah.
But when I was in my 20s, like everybody's like conscious about how you look, what people say about you, how
Yeah.
they hurt your feelings. So I mean, it's just part of life.
Yeah.
And it's gonna always happen to her through, like, maybe once she studies
Yeah.
or have more confidence, she's gonna be able to see that, people are gonna say good things or bad things, and she just have to wrap them off.
Yeah. What are your viewpoints with, so she's on social media and she's, 8 years old. And I have to
Yes.
imagine at this point, most of her peers are probably on social media as well. When did she first start navigating around social media? And I ask this because when I remember I got my first cell phone I think I was 12 or 13 years old, but all we had was AOL Instant Messenger. So we had AIM, but there wasn't, Facebook, I think, became a thing when I was 16, but it was kind of seen as this like college only platform and it wasn't really cool yet. So I was exposed later. And so now we see kids are being exposed at a much earlier age. When did your daughter first get exposed to social media?
Well, the thing is that my content is family. So she was exposed since she was maybe 2 years old.
Okay.
And so that's my song.
Yeah.
So we've been working with, like Disney, like with Carston, Four Seasons. So it's kind of like, it's tough to like raise them, for me, because the thing is like they live like in a bubble, because like, we get hosted, we get treated really nicely, we go to events. But then at the same time, when they were going back to school, there was the shh. Like, oh, it must be easy to just, just go here and just shoot a campaign or open Disney or whatever. Like, people will make mean comments like that. They will pick on my son too a lot. And that's why I actually pulled them out of school and now I homeschool them. So now they're homeschooling for the second year.
So he was being bullied by kids in the school.
And teachers.
Oh, and teachers. What were the teachers saying?
They will make them feel uncomfortable. Like, not so much the girl, but the boy. Like, she will make comments, like, for example, like, we will go for work, right? And he will come back and say, like, oh, yeah, we were working, And she's like, no, you guys know we're working. You guys were in Disneyland. I'm like, yeah, we were shooting a campaign,
Yeah.
And then he will just get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you could see how people will pick on him. And parents too, like parents will say like, it must be nice to have likes. It must be nice to, just, travel. And I'm like, I will just ignore it because, I mean, to me, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But for my kids, it was something that it just hurt me because I know like they are not prepared for that.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a child of their own age, but it's actually an adult picking on a child,
Yeah.
which is even worse.
Yeah, because there's this grapple with authority, and as children, we already have a sense of fear for someone older than us, that they have more power, more influence, and it's not even that we even know what influence and power is, but we feel it. Kids are very intuitive, and for them to feel picked upon, they start to probably ask the question, why am I being picked on? What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
But they also don't have the emotional awareness to realize that. These parents and teachers are picking on them because they're jealous, because they have an ego and they're upset that they don't get to go to Disneyland and enjoy, that lifestyle. And there is this, definitely this disconnect between, I'm going to say the average person, i.e. someone that doesn't work, isn't an influencer, versus the influencer. A lot of people look at it and they say, well, what you're doing isn't work, but it is.
Yes, it is.
I don't know about when you go into Disneyland, you get asked to go to host an event.
Yes.
How do you conceptualize that in your head? Do you go into that and say, okay, I'm here for work, so there is no play mode until like I get my content filmed and then I can enjoy the experience? Or do you walk in and say, okay, I'm going to enjoy the experience, switch into work mode when I need to, and then go right back into having fun? Do you catch yourself kind of like working through this? Like for me, if I'm asked to go do like a brand deal, I basically am like, I can't have fun until I knock this out. So I walk in, I'm like, it's all work. My eyes are like, where am I going to go stand film? What am I going to say? And then once I knock all that out, then I switch over into having fun. How do you navigate through like going into a fun environment, but also having to have work be involved?
If I go by myself, I'll just focus on work, getting done, and then I relax. If I go with the kids, I have to prep the entire day the night before so the days flow fine. Especially when we go to Disney, like sometimes we're just hosting for an event and, we go do the rides and all of that. But sometimes we actually like shoot content for a company. For example, like we went last May and, like we were shooting content at 6:30 a.m. and finishing by 8. So I had to wake them up.
8 p.m. or
no,
8 a.m. Okay, so hour and a half. Okay.
So, at the park, you have to be at 6 a.m. So I had to wake up at 4:30 a.m., get me ready, get the kids ready, get the outfits ready. And everything has to flow. Because if they're not happy, you're going to see it on the content.
So have you faced an instance of that where you've brought them into film content and they're just not having it? They're not happy. They don't want to do it. Have you faced a situation like that?
Yeah, that happened to me once with my daughter, actually. And she's actually my easy kid. And she was just upset. It was very cold. It was very early. I mean, she had a nice day before, but she was just not having it, So I was like, you know what? Like, she's not happy. So, okay, let's just roll with what we have. And I work it out, so.
Yeah. Okay, so you let her then just not be a part of it and said, okay, like we're going to find a way.
I'm not going to push, obviously. I always ask them, like when we do like family content, I ask them like, like I got invited to this. You guys want to go? You don't want to go? And then I tell them like, like my kids are for their age, they're very young. But every time that we go to places, I always been told like your kids are very polite, very educated, very like, like they are, because they've been like traveling since they're babies. So for them, it's very easy. I mean, they've been traveling since they're like maybe 2-3 months old. So I already like know the schedule, like I plan everything ahead of time. And for me to shoot the content, because it's with kids, obviously like I'm gonna try to make it as easy as possible for them. So I will mock up the whole scene even before we get there.
And what I love is that you over communicate. So you basically ask them ahead of time before the trip's even done. You're not saying, hey, we're going to do this. It's like, do you want to do this? If you want to come, then you can. The expectation is that
they have to work a little bit.
You're going to work a little bit. Which is awesome, because I have heard of like some influencers where like they pull their kids in and, they make them, film from, sun up to sundown, and their kid doesn't want to be a part of it. But for you, it's like you're treating them as if they're, even a coworker at times. You're like, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this together, but we have to show up. Which is, I think is absolutely the right way to do it. Do your kids want to be influencers because they've been around you? I mean, do you see them now starting to lean towards that?
My daughter loves it, and she's very natural. Like me, I'm like an introvert extrovert. She's very extrovert, and she's been doing her own makeup since age 6. Like she's very like bubbly. Like she will, like her personality is like that, and she wants to. But it's still early, so I'm like, let's just wait a little bit. So.
Okay, so she's not online right now.
She was on TikTok, like she started growing her following. But then we start getting like, like weird people, weird comments. So I was like, okay, we're going to stop TikTok, and then we're just going to go through my page. Because then it's more manageable.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I knew of another successful influencer out here. I actually met his dad through real estate, and he started asking me questions about how do you navigate social media, and I was like, I started telling him, I'm like, I'm curious why you asked, and he had a 11-year-old son at the time who became really like millions of followers on social media, and they were also watching over his account because they were getting those weird messages. Like getting older men that were, it's like grooming them or trying to get them to send them photos. It's just a really dark place, and it's hard to. As a kid, I mean, if you let them have free will, they don't know what the intentions of somebody and why they're, complimenting them and what their, motives are. And so, it's good that you obviously are controlling that as well. But sounds like she's going to want to jump into that, and she's a natural at it. So, at what point do you feel comfortable, like, giving her access then to social media again, to go back on TikTok? Is it an age thing that you...
I don't think it's an age. I think like maturity, I think once I see her more confident,
Yeah.
a little bit more mature,
Uh-huh.
that she can separate things. I mean, obviously not completely because, she's going to be still a kid.
Yeah.
But at least that she can, wrap it off.
Yeah.
I think I will be comfortable with her doing that.
Yeah. And as far as supervision goes, I mean, if you would decide to let her go back on social media, what are your viewpoints with overall supervision? Because there's the term helicopter parents that basically watch their kids do everything. I mean, they have trackers on the phone or whatever. They have their location on.
No,
they have oversight so they can see who they're texting. I mean, do you, I assume she texts her friends and such. Do you have oversight in that regard? Or?
There's no texting.
Okay.
There's no phones in my house.
Oh, they don't have phones?
No, they don't have phones.
Oh, okay.
Why do they need that? I can call their friends.
Do their friends have phones?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And they ask for a phone, but
Yeah.
I say, you don't need a phone.
Yeah.
You can use my phone and make the phone call.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't need a phone. I mean, they don't need that. Why would they need a phone? They have their iPads.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that is enough.
Okay.
And, the homeschooling is a benefit for me because I can control everything,
Yeah.
And the education is actually really good. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually like the program that they have compared to like the public school system. They were in a private school too, which was a great school.
Yeah.
But I just think the level of the education that they're doing right now is like they can pick elective courses. And, that gave us the opportunity to travel. I mean, they learn by experience, not really from books,
Yeah.
Like we'll go to Italy, we'll go to museums, we'll learn about history. And, my son gets very excited when we travel to a country. He'll be like going into the geography, the maps, and he's like, oh, we can go here and we can learn about this culture.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was better. And actually, that served him a lot because he's very introvert. But I think and he's always like, when you change his itinerary, he kind of gets off like, what the heck is going to happen,
Yeah.
But I think that made him more elastic because, you can plan everything, like the whole scene perfectly for a week and, something happens and then, it is what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so on the topic of homeschooling, do you see it sounds like the benefit is obviously flexibility.
Yes.
And the freedom to be able to work from anywhere, which is why I love being an entrepreneur these days, because I work more than I ever have. I work more than when I was even in corporate.
Yes.
But I get to now, I love what I do. Like I enjoy doing the work. So it doesn't feel like work, but it still is. Yeah. But I have the ability to work, I was just working at my Airbnb earlier, or I can work, at wherever in the country. So there's that freedom. And also what I think is really great for the development is they're being exposed to a lot of different cultures and experiences, which I didn't do growing up. I just kind of stayed in one area for most of my life. And what I thought was, okay, if I'm reading books and all that, I'll become very intelligent and I'll be able to understand the world around me. But in fact, I was almost sheltered to a point where I didn't experience other cultures. So I can only really relate to the people that, looked like me, that acted like me. So I can imagine that like your children are getting that experience to be able to interact with people from all different walks of life, which helps. Do you find any drawbacks with homeschooling? I mean, there's some people say, hey, like they're not around kids all day.
Yes.
So they're not getting those interactions. So is that a drawback that you see? And how do you fight against that or counter that so that they're still getting that social interaction?
So we actually try to do activities daily. My daughter has friends. She's very sociable. Right now, she's in gymnastics. I go to a club and they have different classes. And, she goes to the kids club and plays. My son is more like a loner, So he honestly, he doesn't mind actually being by himself. And I always try to bring friends with kids, like boys. And I'm like, oh, you should just, hang out with him. And he's like, no, I'm fine. It's just different personalities,
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because I raise them both the same way, but are completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that also fascinating too. I mean, so you again, you had your upbringing where you were raised, as you said, as a boy, to be strong, to not show the emotions. And so you then parented in a similar manner. Did you do the same exact, you taught? Because again, I guess you say you parented them in the same manner. Some people may say, okay, well, I'm going to have to parent, my son this way and my daughter this way.
No, I do the same.
The same.
I'm tough with both of them because like I said, I think my dad was very tough. My mom too. They were very strict parents. We were like a Catholic family, and everything was by the book. There was no sleeping overs, like going to friends. Yeah, it was like very strict. And I'm doing the same thing with my kids. And I think it worked for me, and I think it will work for them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe like everybody has their own way of parenting.
Yeah.
But for me, it works. And I'm at home. I'm very involved with my kids. Like I cook with my kids. I do everything with my kids. Activities. Like I don't really like have babysitters. Like I might have somebody maybe to watch them if I have to go to an event.
Yeah.
But if I can bring my kids with me, like I have no problem doing that.
Yeah. And you mentioned like with your upbringing having like a lot of well, maybe I don't know if rigidity was the first word that came, but it was like you had this strict parenting that in a way that you were raised. Did you ever find yourself like having a rebellious phase?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did that occur?
College.
Yeah. Okay. So did you find yourself?
Well, actually, no. I'm lying. That was high school. Because the thing is, my dad was in politics when I was 13.
Okay.
And everybody there in my group was always older.
Okay.
So I started like, drinking, smoking, doing stuff that you're not supposed to do at 13.
Yeah.
My dad had access to alcohol because he was giving, like those boxes for his clients, for like events or whatever, holidays.
Yeah.
So I had like access to all of that.
Yeah.
So I lived very early on, but at some point I kind of like figure it out like, okay, this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to, hit me and it's going to be bad.
Okay. So you had made that active decision at some point in your life when you were in high school to say, I can't be doing this. Yeah. Like, this is detrimental.
Yeah, this is not right.
It wasn't like your parents reprimanded you. And,
they did. If they caught me doing something wrong, because, they were very strict, I tried to sneak out of my house, come back late, like I got in trouble. But, I think compared to other kids, like I was still okay because like I was like, I don't know, like I worked with my dad since I was very young.
Yeah.
I was going to college, getting good grades. So, and like I like to party, I like to hang out with my friends, but I was not doing drugs or anything like that, So I was always like aware and trying to be responsible. Yeah. Even in the whole craziness, I was still like, I have to be responsible because the way that they raised me was like, not to lose control, basically, of the situation. I don't like to lose control.
Okay. And what would punishment look like growing up? Did you, because there's been a change in the way that
I'll get hit.
You were getting hit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was the rule of three. They tell you, they yell at you, and then they hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now as a parent and raising children, how do you feel about like physical punishment?
I don't really use it much. I used to do it sometimes because sometimes like, I will go to a grocery store and, I don't know if it's right or not, but that's my way of parenting. But like sometimes my son will pull a tantrum, 3 years old, you know, 4 years old sometimes. And, like he will make a scene, he will like be rude, like he will like yell and all of that. And I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
So I went, I grabbed him and I hit his hand. I didn't slap him or anything. It was just his hand.
Yeah.
But so he got scared because he's little,
Yeah.
And then this lady next to me, she's like, why are you doing that? Like, you should not hit your son. I'm like, well, you should mind your own business because your son is over there running around like an animal and I'm not going to let my son do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know the research or on children that aren't reprimanded physically, like how they end up being. Like I remember when I was a kid, I was a minion. Like I was running around but I was, my dad was a big man, so I had naturally his presence scared the hell out of me. And between like back then, not with families, it was normal to like, I heard many stories of people would get belted, like belted, mouth washed out with soap, or I heard of a switch where like they have you go out to outside, grab a tree, like a twig or a branch, and it had to be sturdy enough, or if they whipped you and it snapped, you'd have to get another one. But that was more common back then. And I personally, my parents, never put their hands on us to hurt us, but sometimes it's like, hey, get your head together, don't quit doing this. And so I don't feel like it was necessarily a bad thing. Of course, like, if you're hitting your child to hurt them physically, yes, that's a problem.
Obviously, yes.
Right. But how much I without any type of punishment, physical punishment, how does that kid develop?
Yeah.
Are they not tough? If they've never been, hit before in any regard, and all of a sudden they get hit, by someone in life, I mean, how are they going to respond? I don't know. I guess it's something where I don't know the research on it, so I can't speak to it. But I do think that it's certainly changed, and nowadays, people have to be very cautious. Otherwise, you're getting CPS called.
Yes, of course.
For slapping your child on the wrist, which I would say is pretty harmless.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that I guess it goes nowadays. So,
I think people are just scared. Like my son, for example, like one time he was being very disrespectful, and he told me, "Look, I have rights. I can yell at you. I can do this." I'm like, no. I mean, I'm your mother. I'm not your friend, and that's the problem with parents. Like they're like, we're friends, we're buddies. I'm like, no, I'm your mom. I'm here, and you're here, and that's never gonna change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, because like you're coming from a place of experience, and this kid's coming from a place of egocentrism to a degree. I was just actually listening to an audiobook yesterday, and they stated that there's a point, and I think it's when the kids from like 4 to 7 or maybe even earlier, but they live in an egocentric mind where like they think the world revolves around them. They don't know any better. They don't have empathy. They don't know what that is. They're not mature enough to understand it. And so they live in a place where they think that like everything is about me. And if I don't get my way, they don't think about, hey, if I throw a fit in the grocery store, how everyone else is going to be bothered by me screaming. They're just screaming because they're like, give me what I want.
Yeah.
And so they're just wired that way where like they are so focused on themselves. But that's just a natural progression in life for a child, is to go through that stage. And it's how do you parent them so that they don't take it too far and then have the extreme where they become an egotistical adult.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's why there's no manual for parenting, because everyone's a bit different.
Yes.
And so it's really fascinating though to hear, I mean, with like how you were raised in a household and raised, and now you're parenting the same way with these children, regardless of their gender. And so I'm curious, like with your life on social media, how I hear this quite a bit too, being on social media as well, that it's a facade, that it's, that's not an accurate depiction of someone's true life. Do you feel that your social media accurately portrays your family life and what you do? Or do you feel that it's basically the highlight reel. It's the best of the best. Do you hold back certain things from being shown online as well?
I think at the beginning I used to. It was more like not showing, like, like if there was like something bad going on or something. But then I think when I was just going through the years, I kind of felt that, like, like for example, my son has mental health since he's 5.
At 5 years old, when it started.
Since 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And it was hard because, like, I was working at the city as an engineer. I would start my day at like 6 a.m., drop him out to school, 7:30, and then I will pick him up at 6. There's kids that are like, they can handle it.
Yeah.
He is more emotional. So for him, it was like really hard.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons why I actually quit my job and switched into social media, because that gave me the flexibility that I could go pick him up. I could like just manage my own schedule, like I could like maybe take a couple days off, work hard on other days,
Yeah.
But it gave me this flexibility that I could help him and be more present for him. I think when I was working before, I felt that I was there for them, but I was not present.
Okay. Because you were physically elsewhere.
Yeah.
With your job. Did you find it too? I mean, I imagine being a civil engineer requires a lot of brain power as well.
Yeah.
So when you came back home, I mean, and you put on your mom hat, did you find yourself mentally not being able to be 100% present, just out of pure exhaustion from the job?
I was tired sometimes, but I just suck it up. I was raised like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I don't really sleep much. I mean, I sleep 4 hours a day if I'm lucky.
4 hours a day?
All my life. Yep.
Your entire life you've done that?
Yeah. All my life since I'm 6. Yeah.
And do you, I mean, I guess.
And I just need that, honestly. Like, I mean, there's
that's all you
people
need.
that's all I need. 4 hours for me is
And you feel that you're fully recharged.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a subset of people that can operate off of like 4 hours or less of sleep. It's a very small portion of the population, but they actually find that they don't have any type of cognitive decline. Their bodies, I guess, are more efficient at recovering.
Yeah.
And so you feel that you fall in that category.
Yeah.
You've never had a point where you've gotten 7-8 hours of sleep and so that's incredible. I need more of that.
I mean, it's rare, like it may be like once in a while, but then I actually feel more tired because my body is not used to that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like my body is like a clock. It's like I sleep 4 hours and then I just immediately wake up.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Yeah. But you said you started that as early as 6?
Yeah. I had insomnia all my life, so.
Okay, so this wasn't like your dad having you wake up to go to the work site and you only got 4 hours.
No,
you would just have 4 hours and then you just wake up.
Yeah.
And you're running around the house.
Yeah, they were mad. Yeah.
Because
I would be like going to sleep at midnight, like, go to sleep.
Yeah. And then you're up at 4 and they're like, stop. Like, we need you to be asleep longer. You're not supposed to be up this early. Okay. Well, that's fascinating. I guess that's probably also what led to a place of like, having a greater work ethic is you're like, hey, you're awake. So you have to find ways to pass time.
Yeah.
So I suppose a blessing in disguise in itself, but that's good for you to be able to navigate that way. So where are you at currently, like with life? I mean, do you feel that with your the social media that you have going on right now, you're doing the influencing, you're doing the travel lifestyle. Is this what you plan to continue to do for the foreseeable future? Are you building towards something greater? Like, do your kids, like, do you see yourself like them growing out of that? Or like where you're at today versus where you want to go? Do you feel like you're pretty aligned?
Right now, I'll probably like continue doing content.
Yeah.
I actually took a break for a couple months, 2-3 months. I think like I haven't posted actually in a month. But
and why was that?
Because I wanted to focus more on the kids.
Okay.
They needed more attention, more care.
Okay.
Like we have some changes at home, so like I need to focus on them.
Okay.
So that's my priority right now, that they're okay.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of them, and then I'll take over that. I mean, I can take a break. I mean, I never take a break. So, I mean, it's nice to take a break,
Was that stressful when you stepped away for a few months? Because
oh yeah, I'm a workaholic. So I mean, for me, it's like if I don't work, like it just messes up with my brain. But the thing is, like in my house, there's always something to do. Yeah. So I cook at home, I clean my house, like I do my own laundry, like I don't like really to eat out. Like I'm a very like warm body when I'm at home. I'm not traveling. I spend a lot of time with my kids at the pool. Like we'll do activities, like I will go to the movies with them. So I'm very like involved in their life. It's not like I have somebody and I just go do my own thing,
Yeah. Where do you think all this energy comes from? I mean, it's because
my dad.
Okay, so do you believe he trained you in that way, or do you believe that? Did you watch the way that he lived, and then that basically like became infectious, and that wear down on you? So you just saw your dad constantly doing things.
Well, I was raised with high standards because my dad actually he came from a very poor background, and he was from like a very small town north of Lima, the city, and he started working since he was 8 years old.
So he started working at 8.
And then he was very smart. He got a scholarship. He went to boarding school, like a military school, and he was working. So, I mean, his work ethics is like obviously very high.
Yeah.
And my mom was a little bit different. Like, she had a family. It was like more relaxed for her.
Yeah.
So it was both sides. But my dad was always like, you know what? Like, I mean, yeah, I have money now. I'm successful, but like, I'm not going to forget where I came from. And he raised me like that, always to be humble.
Do you know what his first job was at 8 years old?
Yeah, he worked for a tailor.
A tailor? Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine he was the one doing the fittings. He probably wasn't tall enough to like reach up and be able to size people.
That was his first job, yeah.
Really? That's how did he come across that to be his first job? Like, was that because his parents helped him get into that? They had a family friend that had a business?
So he had an uncle.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were like in the farming area, and he never liked farming or anything like that. Yeah. He wanted to go to the city, and he had an uncle, and he just kind of hooked him up, and he started doing that, and he liked it. So yeah.
So I mean, as early as he can remember, he was working, and so that's I found it interesting because I was raised in a household where they said, hey, if we played 3 sports, we wouldn't have to work. So we would play sports to avoid work.
Yeah.
And then what happened was I didn't want to work. I went to college and I found a way to keep playing football all the way through briefly into the pros. But I was able to make that my full-time job. As long as I can play a sport, I don't have to, pick up a job. And then the scary part is after, when I realized I wasn't going to make the NFL stick, I was like, well, I have to have a job. I have to hold something. And I was able to, because I took that work ethic and transitioned it over. But I think, there's a balance of at what point do you get your kids involved in work? I mean, we do have child labor laws. They can't work.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think for me it was different because, my parents never really forced it. It kind of like was the environment that we grew.
Yeah.
Like my mom, for example, they used to have this fabric before, there was the export with China and Peru. So they have like these big fabrics and they will pull them, and then they will fold them.
Yeah.
So I was 6 years old and I was doing that.
Yeah.
Then my mom will go to downtown and she will sell that stuff. Then she will bring a bag full of money and I will separate it by colors because I was 6, so I don't know the numbers, the bills.
Yeah.
So I will just separate them by colors.
Yeah.
Then when I was 13, I was helping my sister because my sister was doing the accounting for my dad's business. And then, I was working on the books, but I didn't like the office. So I started going to the field with my dad and I loved that. So,
yeah. So, yeah,
but it kind of just flew,
Yeah.
It was just flowing. It was never forced. Like, oh, you have to work,
Yeah. It's just like your parents gave you something to do and you did it and you felt good about it. It was fun. You were able to, you were separating the money by colors, which is funny. But for a kid, they're just like, oh, like.
For me, it was a game. Really.
Yeah. And then you probably started to realize, see the money and what it can provide and realize, if I do the work, I get paid money, which means, the more that I work, the more I get paid. And then you found a way where you said, hey, I don't have to work always more. I could work smarter.
Yes.
And make more money doing it that way. So how do I find a way to make more money with putting in, less time?
Yes.
Which is the world of influencing. I've never made more money and spent less time on something than when I'm with social media, but it's still a full-time job. I think people think, oh, you just did an ad and you made 10 grand for, for one 30-second video. It's like, but I thought about the concept, and put it all together and then filmed it and did the edits and all that. And maybe I spent 5-6 hours, but also too, what, led me to the point of being able to get a brand deal like that. Well, it's all the work I put in. It's the physical, it's the way I look. Yeah. It's the food that I put into my body. Like I have everything that encapsulates who I am to get on reality television came from a place of work. I didn't just get blessed with my size and all that. I put the work in. And so when someone says, oh, you did a 30-second video and got paid that, it's like, yeah, but technically I've been working for years, hours in the gym every single day, eating the right foods. Like that's where all the work came to get me to where I am today, where it's like, yeah, sure, I can maybe make a quick buck faster than somebody else, but it's not because I'm working less. What do you classify as work? Which is like, it goes all the way back to the original discussion that we had, or where, a teacher might say like, oh, you guys aren't working. It's like, that's work. That is work. You don't see it as work, but it is work.
It's actually harder, I think, because when I was going to the office, I go at 8 and I finish at 5, right? Yeah. And I'm done with my day.
Yeah, you can shut
But
shut
in
off.
this, it's like you work all day, and you work random hours.
Yeah, there is no off time. No. And if you take it, you start to feel guilty. I got done these last 2 days around like 6 p.m. And I was like, I don't have anything to do. Like, nothing immediate. I don't have any deadlines to hit tomorrow with stuff. And so I was like, what am I going to do? Well, I listened to an audiobook, which is still to me work because I'm training my mind. Yeah. I was listening to a self-improvement book. So I'm like, this is going to help me when I go give mental health speeches or when I have conversations like this.
Yes.
So I couldn't just sit there and watch TV and just veg out or whatever on food. And if I turn on Netflix, I got to turn on a documentary. I'm like, there's got to be something that I can grow within. Yes. So yeah, your mind, I went from corporate America to like, entrepreneurial mind. And it was hard because that switch is drastic. You go from having structure to no structure. Entrepreneurship is a lack of structure. And you're also, I am the brand. So, I am the marketing and development team. I'm the research team. I already said marketing. So marketing, research, sales team. Like I have to be all of that because I'm like, I'm the brand. But no one's telling me I have to be my own boss. I wake up and no one's expecting me to clock in. Like I clock in when I clock in. So that level of autonomy is also like, you got to have really great discipline. Otherwise, you're not going to make it because you're just like, I'll wake up at 8 today because no one's going to tell me to wake up at 5. But I do wake up at 5, so it's like I'm up at 5 and I'm in bed by 10, like, and I'm working that entire time. So it's a different mindset that people just don't really understand until they have these conversations and they get to catch a glimpse of what it looks like. So Karla, this was awesome. Like I'm really grateful that again, like you shared, I was really interesting about the parenting aspect. And I know that ironically, I talked all the way back at the beginning about how, women can be defined by their role as a mother. And I didn't want it to come across that way by spending so much time today. But my goal was to more so understand how you navigate through your work life while still being a parent and still doing that full time. It's a full-time job to parent alone.
Yes.
And it's a full-time job to influence.
Yes.
And so to be able to hear how you do that, and really it's stemmed from childhood and the environment that you were raised within, really helps. I think paint a picture for people that hopefully as they listen to this podcast or watch it, that they can realize that, hey, maybe they have a kid right now that they're parenting, and it's like, understand that your kid's a sponge at a young age. So if you're excited about work and you can get them involved in it, like you're going to instill these incredible values in them, which now you're seeing in your children, allowing them to think outside the box, not see, life as a 9 to 5, but how else can I make money? And so your kids now are already looking for opportunities to do that, which is awesome. They're open-minded because of that, because of how they see you live. So it's awesome because as you share that entire story, it's going to allow maybe a parent or someone out there to realize like, hey, wait, there's another way to do this. And maybe this is a way that can work for how I parent and get my kid excited and get them to see, life as much more than just black and white, because there's a lot of gray area that, influencers especially navigate within. So it's been an honor to have you come on here and share how you operate on a day-to-day basis and how you've made it work for you. So for those that want to continue to follow your journey and get involved and either watch you from afar or be more direct with everything that it is that you're doing, how can people best find you?
What, on social media?
Yeah. Like your social media is like, what are your handles?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's Polymath Mom on Instagram and TikTok.
Okay. And those are your main places.
Yeah, those are the main places.
Okay.
I have one that is called the Polymath Mom, but it's kind of like my backup page.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, when I was starting social media, I had an online store. So I was actually doing that first, and then I went into content creation. So I did it the opposite way than what usually everybody does. Right.
A lot of people starting with content creation, then they find a product.
Yes.
And then that's how they make the money. It's like, okay, you can all come here and like look at what I'm doing. I can bring the eyes, but I need you to convert to sales. Otherwise, this can't work this way. So you flipped it, which, there's no right or wrong way or best way. It's just like the way that you find that works for you. So you did the unorthodox way, but nonetheless, it still worked. So, well, people will be sure to follow you on your socials. And Karla, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.